I never expected a soldier's bond with his dog would lead to a heartbreaking discovery. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I remember the smell of gunpowder still in the air, the chaos of fire and shouting ringing in my ears. And through it all, Max, my loyal German shepherd, stood at my side. It felt like he understood every word spoken in battle, every heartbeat of fear that thundered in my chest. Max was more than just a dog, he was my lifeline. With his muddy paws on my chest and his deep brown eyes fixed on me, I felt a flicker of hope, a tether to the life waiting for me to return. Each day was a struggle. Each moment, a whisper of despair clinging heavily in the humid air. The bond we shared transcended words. When I lost friends on the field, it was Max who nudged me gently, reminding me that even in the depths of sorrow, love remained fierce and unyielding. I often wondered if he could feel my pain, mirroring it in his own way. Sometimes, I caught him staring off into the haunting distance, as if remembering the souls of those who had fallen. One fateful night, after a long and grueling mission, I brought Max back sore and tired, yet strangely alert. He wouldn't settle. Instead, he paced, sniffing around my duffel bag, his anxious heart racing. I could feel it too, something was off. Those moments taunted my mind. The air was thick with unexpressed dread. He started to whine low, a sound that cut right through my chest. I didn't understand, couldn't comprehend the darkness creeping in on us. I hesitated, but curiosity compelled me to dig deeper. As I reached for my bag, I noticed a folded piece of paper, crumpled and stained. My fingers trembled as I unraveled it. The message sent a chill down my spine. Suddenly, everything around me felt surreal, twisted. It was a list of names. Friends. Soldiers, all tied together by fate and blood. Next to each name was a date. My breath hitched. This wasn't just a coincidence. Max whined louder now, as if warning me of the storm brewing just beyond our grasp. He pawed at my hands, urging me to pay attention. I felt tears prick my eyes. What had he sensed that I hadn't? The realization tore through me as icy fingers of fear crept further into my mind. The last name on the page, the one that made my heart stop, was mine. What did this mean? Was I next? Panic washed over my body, leaving me breathless and trembling. My heart raced in sync with Max's frantic barks. The room felt claustrophobic as darkness loomed around me. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room spun around me, a whirlwind of dread and uncertainty. Max sensed my spiraling thoughts, standing at my side, his warmth stark against the chill of my fear. It was a familiar sensation, impending doom, lurking shadows, but this time it was personal, pressing down on me like a suffocating weight. I dropped the note, letting it flutter to the floor, grotesquely harmless yet ominously charged. The names began to meld in my mind, each one a flickering light extinguished too soon in a darkened world. The fear was palpable, a living entity surrounding us. Max pressed closer, his body vibrating as he looked up at me, pleading for clarity I didn't have. Max, what does this mean? I whispered, surprised at how desperate my voice sounded. I studied his eyes, searching for reassurance or some kind of answers, but instead, I found only depth and abyss of understanding few could fathom. It dawned on me then that for every moment I left behind in battle, he carried his own burdens of awareness, stitching together threads of our lives in a way I could not comprehend. I paced the room like a caged animal, a spark of hope flickering weakly against the encroaching darkness. Had I really been targeted? Fragments of laughter and shared moments with my fellow soldiers rang in my ears. Would they know my fate? Would they mourn me as I mourned the brothers I had lost? Max's sudden bark startled me, breaking the darkening thoughts as he darted towards the door. I followed instinctively, his instinct sharper than my own. I reluctantly opened the door, and the night unfolded with an eerie stillness. The moon bathed the landscape in an ethereal glow, juxtaposed against the ominous weight of the note still haunting me. "Come on, buddy," I urged, needing the fresh air and the feeling of grass beneath our feet. I felt vulnerable just stepping outside, the chill biting through my skin. Max darted forward, sniffing the air, his fur bristling as if sensing something in the darkness. As we walked, my thoughts consumed me. Who had written that note? Why me? The emotions that cascaded through me formed a tidal wave, twisting my stomach into knots. What if the list was a curse? What if it signaled an end to everything I held dear? I clasped Max's harness tighter, unwilling to let go of my lifeline. Then I remembered something, a flicker of kindness amidst the chaos. There was a woman in the cafe where I often stopped after duty. Her name was Sarah. She had always taken the time to offer Max treats, and these small conversations like a soothing balm that temporarily eased the ache of trepidation I carried. I decided in that moment that I needed her perspective, her wisdom. Maybe, just maybe, in the darkness that loomed, she could offer a glimmer of light. It was a desperate reach, but what were friends for if not to lend an ear when the walls became too high? When we reached the cafe, the bell above the door chimed softly, but the place was empty. A couple of tables sat vacant, their surfaces still scattered with remnants of the day's activities. The stillness felt eerie. The faint sound of the coffee maker hummed from the back, an ordinary echo in an extraordinary moment. "Sarah," I called softly, my heart racing with the thought of confessing everything that weighed heavily on my mind. I heard a shuffle, followed by her gentle voice from the back. "Just a minute, coming right out." Max perked up, his ears perking towards the sound like a tuning fork. I smiled at him, grateful for the normalcy he offered in a world that had spiraled out of control. Sarah emerged a moment later, her bright smile faltering as she saw the worry etched on my face. "Hey! You didn't look like you were in the right mood for coffee today," she said lightly, her eyes checking over Max, who seemed to sense it too. I need to talk, Sarah," I admitted, holding her gaze. My mind raced, weighing what I wanted to say versus what I feared to reveal. "It's important." Her expression shifted instantly, concern masking her good-natured smile. "That sounds serious. Come sit." Max settled at my feet as I took a seat, and the words tumbled out clumsily, sullying the air. I spoke of the note, the list, the fears, and how Max seemed to understand it all. As I recounted my story, I saw the flicker of sadness travel through her eyes, a mingling of empathy and fear. "Sometimes," she said, her voice soft, "the universe throws things our way that we can't understand. But it's important to remember that help comes in unexpected forms." But as she spoke, an unexpected sound caught my attention. A low rumble echoed outside, a subtle vibration that made the cafe feel like it was shifting on its foundation. Max's head shot up again, and before I could react, he bolted for the door, slipping out and towards the street. I jumped to my feet. "Max?" "No!" Rushing after him, I collided with the doorframe and stumbled into the cool night air. Panic surged through me as I searched the shadows, but Max had stopped, standing firm, barking towards the chilling darkness surrounding the cafe. That's when I saw it, a figure lurking at the edges of the light, the silhouette unmistakable, and the air around us thickened with an acute awareness of the danger drawing near. "Who's there?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper, desperation clawing at the edges. The figure stepped closer, a shadow among shadows, and that was when I realized the names on the list, My name I all began to piece together with a clarity that tore into my very soul. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the promise of survival, and the threads that tangled us a haunting connection that was all too real and far too threatening. And in that instant, I understood. The clock was ticking against something far greater than what I had ever anticipated. With fear knotting my stomach, I took a hesitant step toward the figure emerging from the shadows. My mind raced, piecing together countless memories, frayed connections to every name on that list. Was this person another ghost coming back to haunt me? Or was it an omen, a signal of things to come? "Who are you?" I demanded, voice stronger than I felt as I focused my gaze on the figure. The night seemed to hold its breath, the moon watching closely, illuminating the outline of a familiar face. "Jake," the figure called out, the name slicing through the air with the urgency of a bullet. My heart raced toward recognition as the shadow stepped into the light, revealing a former comrade, a once burly soldier turned gaunt with despair and the weight of loss. "I couldn't find you." "Not until now." "What do you mean?" I gasped, my chest tightening. "What are you doing here?" Jake's face, pale and drawn, conveyed 1,000 unspoken truths. "We're in danger, man. I've been trying to warn you. It's not just a list. It means something to targets." I felt the icy tendrils of dread creeping up my spine. "Targets? What are you talking about?" Before he could respond, Max emitted a low growl, positioning himself protectively in front of me. "We don't have much time," Jake pressed. "They'll come for you. The others, they think you're next. They know you've seen the list." I shook my head, unable to fully grasp the implications. "But why? I didn't do anything wrong. This makes no sense." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Jake's features, his hands trembling slightly, as if grappling with past ghosts. "It doesn't always take sense to put a target on your back. You never know what they're watching for. It's survival, a twisted chess game where the pawns don't get to choose their fate." A gust of wind swirling through the street felt like a warning, and I took a defensive step back, the warmth of the cafe and Sarah's kind presence drifting further away, obscured by looming shadows on the road. "We need to go," Jake urged, urgency sharpening his tone. "Go where?" I questioned, panic swelling within me. Every exit felt constricted. There was nowhere to escape this weighty reality closing in. "The safe house," he replied, face drawn but eyes sharp. "You know the one. The place where we used to train. Just come with me. You have to trust me." Trust. A fragile word, threading through the conflict enveloping my heart. Trust had been a bitter luxury in this world fraught with betrayal and loss. But Jake's haunting gaze and raw desperation ignited a flicker of the camaraderie we had shared, a bond formed in the fires of battle. "I can't just leave." "What about Sarah?" "I can't put this on her," I protested, glancing back at the cafe, beckoning for Sarah's warmth, her laughter the slice of hope that felt so fragile. Just when I thought I could share my burdens, another storm threatened to sweep them away. "Do you think she'll be safe here?" Jake shot back, voice rising with urgency. "Once they know your name is on that list, everyone you care about becomes a target too. We can't risk it." The weight of responsibility settled like lead in my gut. I felt Max's body shift beside me, moving closer, as if he sensed the rising tension. My breathing rattled in my chest, and I glanced back towards the cafe one last time, able to almost hear Sarah's soothing voice. Yet the kinship I felt with Jake was undeniable, not just brotherhood forged in combat, but a deeper, bone-deep understanding of what was at stake. "Okay," I relented, heart pounding. "It'll go, just give me a moment." Just as those words left my lips, the night shattered with the sound of heavy footsteps, the echo rippling through the chill of the evening air. A tight knot of fear seized me as figures emerged from the darkness, faces obscured, hostility radiating with every step they took toward us. "Jake!" I shouted, backing toward him, desperate as panic flooded my senses. What do we do? His eyes met mine, bright with terror yet unwavering in purpose. There's no time. We fight or we run. My heart raced as I weighed our options, but the odds felt stacked against us. There was nowhere to go, every escape route choked with impending doom, the shadows surrounding us growing denser. But then something else stirred in my chest. Resolve? I might be shaken, but I was not willing to go down without a fight, especially not now, not when this battle involved everything I held dear. Let's go! I yelled, the words igniting a spark of defiance in the cold night. With Max at my side, we darted into the darkness behind me as Jake led the way, heart pounding with every step we took, the thought of Sarah's worried face and the uncertainty of what lay ahead suffocating yet driving us forward. And then, just as hope flickered in the darkness, a part of me wondered if breaking free would lead us beyond threat and into safety, or if we were simply running straight into another trap of revelation. That twisted my gut with instinctual dread. The figures behind us pressed on, relentless shadows in pursuit, sealing our fate in a way I had yet to understand. The list, the names, the bonds they were all about to intertwine in a way I'd never anticipated, and the last threads of hope whispered a haunting question: would we survive the truth, or discover a darkness waiting to swallow us whole? The night became a frenzied blur as Max kept pace beside me, his low growls mingling with the pounding of my heart, their rhythm sinking in a desperate plea for survival. Jake led us, his breath ragged, shifting through the labyrinth of alleys we once traversed with purpose, now infused with the weight of despair. Stay close, Jake hollered over his shoulder, urgency drowning out the uncertainty threatening to consume me whole. The sound of heavy footsteps followed us like shadows, echoing through the tight corners and vacant spaces of the familiar territory that had now turned hostile. As we rounded a corner, a flicker of something caught my eye. An old oil lamp flickered outside a dilapidated building, a welcome beacon amid swirling uncertainties. "What about here?" I called out, sensing its potential as a hiding spot. "No time," Jake shouted back, his steadfast resolve propelling him forward. We pressed on, but the fleeting thought of shelter nagged at my brain. Could we risk a moment's pause? All it took was a single glance back to see the figures gaining ground, and I swallowed that thought. I couldn't afford hesitation. Every breath could mean life or death. Adrenaline surged through me, echoing the primal instinct to fight rather than flee. As we barreled forward, a hard turn led us into the remnants of an abandoned structure, once a vibrant hub of life, now draped in shadows. The air was thick with a pungent mix of dust and decay. My mind spiraled through a series of what-if every scenario flashing like an old film reel, too fast to absorb, but too lingering to erase. "We need to hide," I hissed, tugging at Jake's arm. "We can't keep running like this." Jake hesitated, the weight of indecision evident on his face. Then, finally, with a determined nod, he led us into the darkness of the crumbling walls, the scent of mildew filling our nostrils. I pressed my back against the cold brick. Max huddled at my feet, his body vibrating with tension. As silence descended, the footsteps grew louder outside, pounding like a drum heralding inevitable doom. Each heartbeat was a reminder of our fragility, a raw connection pulsing between me, Jake, and Max, the trio forged in desperation. I could see it in Jake's eyes. He was haunted, as those shadows from the past had returned to claim him, much like the enemies now stalking us. "Jake, who are they?" I whispered, fearful to break the cocoon of tension enveloping us. "They're remnants from the past, men who don't forgive easily," he replied, voice low but steady, as if steadying himself against memories suffocating his resolve. "They believe they can intimidate us into silence." "Silence about what?" I pressed, urgency clawing at the corners of my mind. He swallowed hard, and I watched as the burden of his confession weighed heavily on his tongue. "About the organization, the list. They think you know more than you do. They'll stop at nothing to control the narrative. The words felt like a jolt, sending electric pulses of dread through me. Was I merely a pawn in a game with rules I didn't know? But I don't know anything, Jake. I swear. He placed a hand on my shoulder, firm yet shaking. I believe you. But they won't. They see you as a threat. We can't let them win. Not this time. As the footsteps approached, the silence suddenly shattered with the sound of a door creaking open, darkness rushing inside like a malevolent tide. My breath caught, trembling hands clenching tightly around the edge of my fading hope. Stay quiet, Jake instructed, lowering his voice even more. The shadows seemed to come alive, playing tricks on my mind, as whispers swept through the room, barely audible yet laden with malice. The figures moved in, clad in darkness, voices calling out our names not out of concern, but as a means to harness our fear. "We know you're in here," one of them sneered, the maleficent tone sending chills down my spine. As they began to search, scratching the walls and peering into the corners. A sudden growl from Max unraveled our careful concealment. I pressed my hand over his snout, desperate to silence him, but it was too late. "Look!" Another voice barked, excitement twisting with menace. Jake grabbed my arm. "Run!" With no time to think, instinct took over, propelling us forward through the other side of the building into the chaos beyond, escaping the clutches of a fate that too easily could have sealed our doom. But the moment we burst into the open air, the reality of our flight came full circle. An ambush awaited us. Figures loomed in every direction, like shadows melting into the night. Hope felt like a distant memory, the warmth of Sarah's laughter now tauntingly out of reach. "Jake!" I shouted, disoriented, as the darkness pulled us apart, my heart fracturing in the chaos. "Keep moving!" he shouted back, his voice barely cutting through the turmoil that seemed to drown us. But as I turned, a figure lunged at me, and in that moment, everything spiraled. Despair clutched at my throat, choking out breaths that felt increasingly erratic. I felt the cold, hard grip of the assailant on my arm, but just before darkness threatened to crash down on my vision, I heard a heart-wrenching sound, the unmistakable howl of Max, followed by a scream. "Max!" I cried, horror spiraling through me. The pain of watching my loyal friend come under threat clashed with everything I'd feared would happen. In that moment, the light dimmed, hope shattering like glass around me, leaving only questions and agony lingering in the air. Would I lose everything I held dear? Had I run straight into a nightmare from which there was no awakening? With a gut-wrenching twist of dread, I teetered on the brink of an even darker truth. If they could strike at Max, then there were deeper conspiracies at play than I could ever imagine. The cold grip of despair wrapped tightly around me as I staggered backward, my heart pounding in a rhythm that felt almost deafening in the chaos of the night. My eyes darted frantically, searching for Max, who had always been my steadfast protector, my anchor when everything around us felt uncertain. With the sounds of my own panic echoing off the brick walls, I fought through the crushing wave of fear that threatened to sweep me under. "Max!" I screamed again, desperation clawing at my throat. If I could just see him, just know he was okay. But the world around me blurred, figures closing in with their mocking laughter and menacing whispers, each step closer pulling me further into the depths of hopelessness. As I regained my balance, I felt Jake's hand on my shoulder, urgent yet gentle, grounding me as I fought against the whirlwind of emotion spiraling in my chest. "We have to go now," he insisted, his voice a steady beacon amid the storm. But I hesitated, torn between the need to flee for our lives and the instinct to fight for the one creature who had shown me unconditional love. "No! We can't leave him." The words broke from my lips in a frantic plea. Jake's grip turned more protective. "There's nothing we can do for him right now. We need to survive first. We'll come back for him, I promise." "Come back?" The word felt like a betrayal, burning in my throat. What if there wasn't a coming back at all? With each passing second, the panic clawed harder. What if they hurt him? They won't. You need to trust me, Jake said, the weight of his sincerity glimmering through my tempest of despair. And though a small ember of hope flickered in the pit of my stomach, it wasn't enough to banish the looming fear that enveloped us. Pain surged through my veins, each heartbeat amplifying the terror of leaving Max behind. But I knew, as Jake's eyes searched mine with an intensity that demanded unyielding trust, that I had no choice. Either I followed him, or I settled into despair, forever held captive by the very darkness we were desperately trying to escape. With one last lingering glance back into the shadows, I nodded, letting the bitterness of surrender wash over me. "Let's go," I whispered, quiet determination lacing my resolve. Together, we bolted into the night, the unforgiving streets stretching in front of us. The thrill of running surged through my limbs as adrenaline kick-started my senses, but each step felt hollow. Echoes of Max's howl still reverberating in the corners of my mind. We maneuvered past alleyways and shadows, our breaths intermingling with the heavy night air. Jake said little, but the tension radiating from his body conveyed more than words ever could. He might have shielded me from the worst of our circumstances, but I sensed the guilt that crackled around him like static electricity. As we ducked through a narrow passageway, the breath of salvation came from an old storefront, its dim light offering more than illumination. It was a sanctuary, a fleeting moment of hope. We slipped inside, hearts racing as we pressed our backs against the door, ears straining for any sign of pursuit. Do you think they saw us? I breathed, searching Jake's face for answers, but his eyes were distant, lost somewhere far beyond the physical world we inhabited. I don't know, he replied, voice strained. But we can't stay here long. We need to keep moving. In the quiet chaos, I caught my breath and tried to steady my racing heart, but the anguish of loss gnawed at me. "Jake, if we get out of this, we have to find him," I insisted, the desperation slipping back into my veins like a familiar poison. He met my gaze, a mixture of foreboding and understanding swimming in his dark eyes. "If we get out of this," he echoed softly, the gravity of our situation pressing upon us. "I swear on my life, we will." For a fleeting moment, his words washed over me with warmth, and I clung to that promise like a lifeboat in a stormy sea. I took a deep breath, searched the dim storefront for anything useful to guide our escape, and there, amidst the debris, something caught my attention, a small musk envelope, elegant, yet worn by time. Curiosity stirred, and I knelt to pick it up. The seal was familiar, the insignia belonged to an organization I had only heard in hushed tones. Heart racing, I tore it open and half read the message, my pulse quickening with each word. "For your eyes only, the truth lies within." Suddenly, the door rattled, a harsh reminder that time was slipping away from us. Jake's eyes shot to me, his expression torn between concern and encouragement. "We need to," but before he finished, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by voices doing their ominous dance around the storefront. I felt the envelope slip from my fingers as I raised my head, a chilling realization settling deep within my gut. This wasn't just about Max or our escape. It was all connected, the truth about the organization, about Jake's past, and how tightly woven it was with my own. With our hearts beating like war drums, I turned to Jake, the urgency in my gaze a frantic question. "What is this? You're tied to them, aren't you?" His eyes widened, shadows flickering behind them. It's complicated? Or dangerous?" I interrupted, feeling the tension building as the voices grew more insistent on the other side of the door. The realization crashed over me. Every thread in our tangled story was leading to something profound and terrifying. As he opened his mouth to respond, a shattering explosion erupted outside, the door splintering into the space where we had found momentary refuge. And just like that, everything felt active with the force of inevitability. "Go!" Jake shouted, shoving me toward an alternate exit, panic racing through his tone. I tore my gaze away from his face, the fear growing as I resolved to run not just for the now but for all the pieces of this unfolding puzzle, my heart heavy with the knowledge that our journey was far from over. And in the back of my mind, the horrifying thought settled Einie would face whatever lay ahead without Max, without certainty of anything, and yet with the chilling weight of a truth that promised to unravel everything I thought I knew. The hairs on my neck stood on end as I bolted into the alley, the echoes of destruction still threatening behind me. The air buzzed with an unyielding energy that felt as alive as a predator hunting in the shadows, hungry for my dread. My legs pumped hard against the uneven cobblestone, and I focused on the rush of adrenaline igniting my every movement. Jake was just ahead, urgency propelling him forward as he scanned the darkened corners of our path, instinctively guiding us deeper into the maze of the city. I thought of Max, a loyal spirit, whose warmth always provided comfort. The bond we shared was one that transcended mere affection. He was more than a pet. He was my guardian, my companion in the darkest hours. The fear of leaving him behind clutched at my heart, making my chest feel tight and my breast shallow. I couldn't shake the haunting image of him, abandoned and scared, to face whatever lurking threats awaited in the shadows. "Where are we going?" I called out to Jake, whose strides were long and purposeful, an urgency in his movements that felt almost frantic. "Just keep moving. We need to put distance between us and them." He glanced back, his brow furrowed as if he sensed something more than just footsteps behind us. Following him, I rounded a corner, just catching a glimpse of a flickering neon sign that promised food and warmth. The diner looked retro, alive with a charm that seemed to exist in another world, a world separate from the chaos currently consuming ours. We slipped inside, the small bell above the door chiming a soft welcome, but the ambience belied our reality. Jake quickly found a booth tucked away in the corner, its leather cracked but inviting. We sank into the seat, our breathing hurried and uneven, the weight of the night pressing down upon us like a thick fog. I couldn't help but think of my childhood, of the safe spaces created in ramshackle buildings, places where laughter and secrets spun a cocoon around us, granting us brief escapes from the world. But this was different. This was haunted ground. Shadows of our fears draped over every surface. "We can't stay long," Jake murmured, stealing glances out the window, alert to any movements beyond the glass. "What are we even doing?" I pressed, my voice trembling as I glanced around as if the walls themselves could offer clarity. "What about Max? We can't just leave him." Each word echoed with desperation, each syllable building a tremble within me. "I know," he said, his voice suddenly thick with emotion. "But right now, we need to figure out how to survive, and how to find him. I swear I won't abandon him. Not when to cut him off," a mixture of frustration and fear fueling my words. "Not when you what?" "You owe me something, Jake. You've got secrets tied to that organization, secrets you're not sharing, and I need to understand why this is happening." My eyes filled with tears. I could feel them welling up in the corners, hot and heavy. His gaze softened, and a hint of pain flashed across his face. "It'll explain everything, I promise. But we have to stay alive first. After that, it'll all make sense." There was a sincerity in his eyes, an echo of the trust and connection we had built, though it felt frayed after all that had happened. His nostrils flared as he took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts. "Why don't you look at that envelope? Maybe it holds clues about what we're dealing with." With hesitant hands, I reached beneath the table, where I had dropped it in our haste. I felt the weight of the paper, as if it held not just the words written, but also the gravity of the unspoken truths binding us together. Carefully, I opened the envelope again, the delicate script inside barely illuminated by the diner's low-hanging lights. The writing was bold and swirled with an urgency that made my heart race. "Your connection is deeper than you think. Find the truth, and you will find what you seek." Beneath it, there was a list of locations, names that felt like stray puzzle pieces waiting for context. each word pressed down on my chest, a wave of hope intertwined with fear. But just then, the bell over the door chimed again, pulling me from my thoughts. I turned, my heart dropping into my stomach as a figure stepped into the diner's glow, someone wearing black, face obscured by shadows, but the energy radiated a familiarity that made me freeze. "Keep your head down," Jake muttered, his demeanor shifting as if he sensed the imminent danger before awareness even registered. I could barely process the precariousness of our situation as the figure began scanning the room. I turned the envelope over in my hands, the notes scrambling in my mind like trapped butterflies, alive with potential yet threatening to burst out of control. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was the moment where we would learn how tangled our lives truly were. Facing a truth I hadn't even known existed, Jake's tense voice pulled me back to the present. "We need to go now." The urgency wrapped around us like a vice, his eyes wounded and alarmed. I didn't move. The figure was getting closer, and suddenly everything became heavy there, the impossible choice ahead of us. I can't just run. They might be here for Max. The thought gnawed at my insides, and my vision blurred with the weight of impending loss. "Trust me," he pleaded, reaching for my arm. "We fight today to win tomorrow." As I finally turned, my heart clenching in defiance, I caught the figure's gaze. Recognition rushed through me, an electric shock igniting all the questions I didn't even know I had. It was someone I had lost, someone whose bond had been severed by time and secrets. And in that moment, it all converged. Me past collided with the present, and a truth, dark and painful, began slithering into the light, a connection to this nightmare that could cost us everything. I gasped, the reality settling in like lead in my veins. A journey that had started with Max now unearthed ghosts more potent than what I could bear. I stared at the figure, my breath hitching in my throat. Recognition sliced through the haze of fear like a knife. The weight of memories crashing upon Yuho stood before us was Jason, my older brother. The very person I thought lost in the maelstrom of life, consumed by choices and distance. My heart raced not just from the panic of our circumstances, but from the overwhelming torrent of emotions that bubbled up: relief, anger, confusion, and a sadness that ached for all the years we had missed. But this was not a joyous reunion. The tension in the room was thick as he approached slowly, the shadows still clinging to his face, weariness etched into his brow. "Carmen?" His voice was gravelly, uncertain, as if he, too, was grappling with what this all meant. "Jason," I whispered, barely able to form coherent words. You're alive." He shifted nervously, not stepping closer, but not pulling away either. "I was trying to find you. There's so much you don't know." A rush of adrenaline made everything feel surreal as I began to process the implication of his appearance. Was he part of this chaos? Was he here to help, or was he entangled in the web we had stumbled into? My heart twisted painfully at the thought of betrayal, yet the unconditional bond of family thrummed beneath the surface of my worry. Jake's hand tightened around my arm, grounding me in the present. "We need to go, Carmen," he insisted again, his voice low and urgent, darting glances toward Jason, as if he sensed the possibility of danger lurking there. "Wait!" I exclaimed, desperation pouring into my voice. "What did you mean by 'there's so much I don't know'?" "Jason, please." Jason's expression flickered with conflicting emotions, and he took a step closer, urgency adding to his words. "I can't explain everything here. Trust me. There's a reason you're in danger, a reason that connects to Max. The mere mention of his name made my heart ache. What do you know about my dog? What's happening? Carmen, those people," he began, his voice cutting short as he looked around, paranoia rising within him. "They're not just after you. They want what you hold. The envelope, the connections, your bond with Max. It all leads back to something far bigger than any of us. Please, let's go somewhere safe, and I promise I'll tell you everything." The urgency in his plea struck a chord in me, threading back to the protection I always sought from him growing up. But the fear of betrayal curled around my heart like barbed wire, making me hesitate. "You're involved with them, aren't you?" I shot back, my voice sharp, teeth gritted against the onslaught of emotions swirling inside. "I am involved in trying to protect you," he hissed, finally stepping into the dim light, the contours of his face revealing the weariness that came from too many sleepless nights. The lines around his eyes whispered of burdens that felt heavier than mine. "You have to believe me. They're using me, and I can help you shake them off." I looked at Jake, searching for the reassurance I desperately needed. His expression shifted from tense confusion to a hard resolve, making me feel like I had drifted even further away from the decisions I needed to make. "Carmen, listen," he urged, but my gaze was fixated on Jason. We used to share everything. He was my protector, a beacon of guidance. But could that light still shine through the darkness shrouding him now? "Carmen?" Jason's voice cracked, a flicker of pain piercing through his otherwise resolute demeanor. "It was never my choice to leave. There are things I wish I could have changed. But I need you to trust me again, for Max. The thought of my faithful companion, the only innocent being in this world fraught with treachery, stirred determination. I couldn't abandon him. I couldn't abandon anyone. Yet I had a choice to make, a decision that felt insurmountable. The bell over the door chimed again, sending a jolt through my already fraying nerves. The figure that stepped into the diner carried an ominous energy. This one was cloaked in the same black garb, but this time the air felt thick with known intent. In that heartbeat, I understood that whatever choice I made would rip through the fabric of our already fragile reality. "There's nowhere safe," I said, quietly, glancing from Jason to Jake, my voice barely above a hushed whisper. "We need to leave together now." A flicker of hesitation crossed Jason's face, his brow furrowing with uncertainty, but he nodded once, resolutely. I was still but a thread away from risking everything. The envelope trembled in my hands as I took a deep breath, readying myself for the chasm of the unknown that lay ahead of us. But as we stepped toward the exit, I felt a sharp tug at the strings of my heart. In that moment of anticipation, I glanced back at the diner's patrons. A young boy sat at the counter, watching us intently. His face was streaked with dirt, and he was clutching a battered stuffed dog, the kind that spoke of lost childhoods and dreams long forsaken. He met my gaze, and in that brief exchange, I felt a spark of hope, an inexplicable connection amidst the turmoil, and then another revelation crashed against me, magnifying the weight of my decision. Perhaps the answers we sought lay beyond our fear, buried within the hearts of those we might meet along the way. "Carmen," Jake urged, pulling at my arm, but I lingered for just a second longer. Jason stepped forward to usher me out, urgency radiating from him like heat waves, and then the door swung open behind us. There they stood, the shadows from my worst nightmares, drawn to us like moths to a flame, eyes glinting with malice. "Carmen," they called, and I felt the ground beneath me shift. The siren call of danger had finally arrived, and I could either plunge forward into the gauntlet of uncertainty or remain rooted in the past, trapped between loyalty and love. The choice washed over me like icy water, and for the first time, I felt the terrifying breath of inevitability at my back. With one last look at the young boy and his plush companion, I dashed forward, a single, haunting thought pressing into my mind. The soldier's bond with his dog had drawn us deeper into the abyss of heartbreak, yet the path ahead beckoned with both peril and promise. The air was thick with anticipation, a potent mix of fear and desperation energizing my steps. As we stumbled from the diner, Jason and I moved like shadows, urgency propelling us, but uncertainty weighing heavily on our minds. The echo of our hurried breaths mingled with the muted clamor behind us, the reality of our situation crashing often and fiercely against every thought. "The van!" Jake shouted, pointing toward the dimly lit parking lot, where flickers of light cast long, ghostly shadows on the pavement. But even as I heard the words, something deep within made my pulse quicken, not just from adrenaline, but from desperate hope. We broke into a sprint, Jason flanking me while Jake kept pace with a protective stance. My fingers clutched the envelope tightly, the contents unknown but heavy with significance. For so long, Max had been my sole anchor amid chaos. Yet, as my heart raced on the brink of discovering truths buried in obscurity, I realized I had unwittingly drawn the entire world closer into my labyrinthine struggles. The van loomed ahead, a hulking silhouette against the night, seemingly waiting for our arrival, as if it belonged to a stranger's life entirely. Jason reached the driver's side first, yanking the door open. "Get in," he urged, casting furtive glances back toward the diner, dread coiling tightly in his gut. I hesitated for a moment at the rear door, the image of that boy-haunting meth innocence in his eyes, and the weight of my decision pressing down on my shoulders. "What about him?" I whispered, unable to shake the worry that others would bear the brunt of whatever mess I found myself in. "He'll be fine," Jason replied sharply, but not without a hint of softness. "We need to keep moving. I promise he'll explain everything once we're out of here." The resolve in his voice tugged at something deep within. Surrendering to his plea, I climbed into the back seat, and Jake followed, sliding in beside me as Jason jumped into the driver's seat. As the engine turned over, the vehicle hummed with a life of its own. The headlights bared down on the seemingly empty road ahead. But just as we were about to peel away, I felt the sudden gravity of our predicament crash like waves against a shore. "Carmen," Jason began, his voice steady despite the chaos around us, but I could hear the underlying waver. "You don't know everything yet. I don't understand how you could just come back." I cut him off, fury and confusion coiling. "You disappeared. I thought you were dead." "I had my reasons," he countered, clenching the steering wheel tightly. "And they're the same reasons I'm here now. You need to believe that whatever happens from this moment forward, I'm doing it to protect you." The words hung in the air, taut as a string about to snap. Trust was a fragile thing, and I wasn't sure how much I had left to give. The last time I had trusted someone, I had learned the bitter taste of betrayal. Jake's eyes darted between us as tension filled the confined space, and I could sense the turmoil inside him, a distinct war between loyalty to me and the growing unease about Jason. "Can we focus on getting to safety first?" he suggested, his hand gripping the dashboard tightly, as though he could ward off unseen forces hovering in our periphery. "I am not going to let them take you, Carmen. I promise." Jason's voice broke the tension, and for a fleeting moment, a flicker of the brother I once knew sparked against the backdrop of turmoil. I took a breath, letting the air fill my lungs as I closed my eyes and imagined Max's faithful presence beside me. "Where are we going?" "There's a safe house nearby," Jason replied, focus unwavering on the road ahead. "It's an old friend's place where they can't find us. Just hold on." My heart sank at the mention of safety, knowing all too well that safety was fleeting in my life. As we barreled away into the dark, I swiftly checked the envelope in my lap, unable to resist the pull of curiosity. The need for answers burned fiercely. Would they soothe the restless ghost that haunted me, or would they shatter my already fractured world? Suddenly, headlights flashed from behind, encroaching like the hands of fate. My pulse quickened. "They're following us." "I'm not letting them take you," Jason declared, a fierce determination bubbling in his voice as he pressed down harder on the accelerator. The van lurched forward with a jolt, but chaos erupted as a vehicle careened alongside us. Shouts erupted, and ominous figures leaned out of the windows, faces obscured but intentions spelled out clear as day. "Carmen!" they yelled, voice dripping with malice. "You can't run forever." The walls closed in as the unfamiliar voices ripped through my mind, echoing the sentiments of guilt and fear. The little boy's face flashed before me again, and I understood the chasm between where I was and where I wished to be. Everything I ran from was closing in, and hope was slipping from my grasp like grains of sand. Jason turned and slammed on the brakes, the sudden movement rattling us within the confines of the vehicle. "What are you doing?" I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. But he was already executing a sharp turn, tires screeching as we veered down an unmarked side road, darkness enveloping us like a cloak. "Hold on," he shouted, and just as the words left his lips, an explosion shook the very essence of our reality. The world tipped in a chaotic swirl of metal and shattered glass, and in that moment, I realized all the dangers I thought I had anticipated paled in comparison to the true horrors that awaited us. I reached instinctively for Jason, but in that split second, everything shattered. My past, my hope, my belief in a future, came tumbling down like a house of cards weighted by immeasurable secrets. And as darkness consumed us, a new revelation chipped through the only bond that remained unbroken was the fierce love we held for one another. But would it be enough when the shadows of our choices finally fell? The van teetered on the edge of chaos, metal twisting and groaning as it succumbed to the mess of our hastily made decisions. I inhaled sharply, the acrid scent of smoke and fear mixing into a vortex of panic. Were we truly escaping, or had we simply plunged deeper into a storm with no horizon in sight? The world around us was a cacophony of shattering glass and distant sirens, each wail pulling my heart into the void. I blinked through the haze. Jason's determined face was lit by the flicker of lights beyond the shattered windshield, even as the ground beneath seemed to shudder under the weight of our collective dread. "Carmen? Are you hurt?" His concern pressed through the chaos, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. I waved my hands over my body, checking for shards of metal embedded in my skin or broken bones lying in wait, but my limbs felt intact at least for now. "I am okay," I whispered, the words feeling fragile in the heavy atmosphere. I turned to Jake, whose eyes were wide with alarm, yet there was a flicker of something else, a simmering determination that shimmered in the dim light. He was my rock, a presence amidst the rapid descent into uncertainty. "We gotta get out," Jason urged, pushing the door open with a force that belied the visceral urge to retreat. "They're coming. We need to move now." Without thinking, I followed his lead, scrambling out of the van and into the night, my heart pounding like distant war drums. I didn't even bother to glance back at the wreckage. The mere thought filled me with hollow despair. Instead, I pushed forward, Jake's steady presence beside me, as we raced to evade the approaching threat. Bare branches snapped underfoot, the winter chill kissing my skin while panic burned within. It felt surreal, this battle between fright and the hope for safety, yet an unexpected spark flickered in the darkness. Briefly, I caught sight of a stray dog darting through the underbrush, its shaggy coat gleaming in moonlight. It paused to regard us, uncertainty flickering in its eyes, but as Jason's footsteps echoed closer, it dashed away, vanishing as swiftly as it had appeared. "Where are we heading?" I gasped, glancing back at Jason, his expression a mixture of fierce protectiveness and an unsettling worry. My heart ached for every decision that had led us there, yet I couldn't deny the bond forming anew between us, tempered by fear and raw stakes. "There's a hideout nearby," he said breathlessly, motioning us forward. "They won't expect us to be this far off the road." Hope began to unfurl within me like a cautious bloom. "And what about Max?" My voice cracked, a tremor of guilt in every syllable. Could I truly seek solace when I had risked everything, placing others in danger for a shattered past? "Focus on surviving first, Carmen," Jason shot back, yet his words held a softness. "We'll find a way to help him. I promise." The promise felt heavy. Words were often fragile in the face of reality. As we pressed deeper into the night, I felt the shadows press against me, their cold fingers gripping tight. Yet I clung to those promises, each breath a desperate prayer. As we dipped into a thicket surrounded by ancient trees, then it hit meth envelope. The contents, hidden and precious, slipped from my mind, overshadowed by the urgency of survival. I fumbled for it in the pocket of my jacket, pulling it out with trembling fingers. A wild urge to unravel its secrets danced in my core. Right now, it could be a guiding light or a haunting reminder of everything I was trying to escape. I need to see what's inside this, I murmured, practically holding onto it like a bandage for a gaping wound. Jason hesitated, the tension shifting palpable as he glanced around, weighing our options like a tightrope walker. If you think it can help with what? I snapped, frustration boiling over. What we need, Jason, is clarity. I can't keep stumbling through the dark. Finding his gaze, I saw a mixture of reluctance and admiration, the soldier battling his own demons against the tempest of shared histories. Okay. But we don't have time, he finally conceded, the bravery of his heart stark against the backdrop of danger. With trembling hands, I began to peel back the flap, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air as the world felt suspended in time. Each layer revealed not just paper, but ghosts of my past, a long-lost connection to Max, and secrets buried deeper than I could ever fully grasp. Then it slipped free. A photograph fluttered from the envelope, catching the breeze like a promise only partially fulfilled. I reached for it, heart pounding again, not just in fear, but in anticipation. And there he was, Max, his toothy grin so contagious, encircled by a group of familiar faces, memories preserved within the frame. But at the bottom of the picture, scribbled in small letters, something twisted in my gut. Meet the soldier who saved his life. Carmen, we need to go. Jake's urgent voice pulled me back, but as I studied the photograph, a chilling realization swept over me, sending shivers down my spine. If this soldier was linked to Max, the implications ravaged my mind. Earlier fears took on a new meaning, blending shadows into sharp edges against the mystery unfolding before me. If I sought the truth, I might unearth horrors tied not only to my escape, but to Max's freedom as well. Carmen. Jason's voice cut through my thoughts, a touch of panic deepening his tone, urging me to slip the photograph back into the envelope. But it was too late. The weight of what I unearthed bore down on mere struggle was bigger than I ever realized. And just then, a figure emerged from the darkness, ominous and unexpected, both a healer and a harbinger with the ability to pull us deeper into this black hole of chaos. Going somewhere? They asked, voice dripping with a familiarity that sent ice through my veins, unraveling every shard of hope I had carefully tucked away. In that moment, I knew we were no longer just running from the past. We were hurtling toward a future I could scarcely comprehend, as uncertainty twisted dangerously close, staining every breath with a poignant dread. The bond we had forged amid the chaos was now more essential than ever, and yet the layers of impending heartbreak had only just begun to unravel. The air was thick with the scent of smoke, fear, and the gripping uncertainty of what lay ahead, as time seemed to hang suspended between my breaths. I could hardly process the figure before us, the shadows shifting with the silhouette of someone I had once loved fiercely, now a ghost that had returned to haunt my every step. Carmen, a voice whispered through the tumult, earning a frigid silence from all who dared to hear. Lila. I was stunned, caught off guard by the very embodiment of the past I had thought buried beneath layers of time and memories. My childhood best friend had come back, but not like I had dreamed. Off her eyes held something darker, a reflection of pain and sorrow that shrouded her every motion. Why are you here? My question thrummed with disbelief. I took a step forward, but a tightening sensation gripped my heart, the consequences of our time apart clawing at me. Because I had to be, she said gently, her voice a caress wrapped in heartbreak. You're in danger, Carmen. Everything you've faced, everything you've fought for, it's all connected to me and to this. She gestured widely, as if encompassing the chaos surrounding us, the unseen conflict lurking just beneath the surface. My mind raced, piecing together fragments, but questions fluttered like moths in my head. Why didn't you come sooner? Why didn't you save yourself? As soon as the words left my lips, I regretted them. They were laced with a desperate accusation. Lila wasn't just an old friend. She was a mirror reflecting every fear I had bottled up since the moment I received the dreaded note. Because I didn't know until it was almost too late. I thought I could keep you safe, keep this from reaching you. Her voice cracked, summoning a flood of emotions that pulsed just beneath the surface of her carefully constructed facade. Safe from what? The urgency within me was mounting, pulling at the fraying orchestration of my heart. It felt like an anchor dragging me toward the depths, where secrets unfolded like petals of a dark flower. From your bond with Max, she said, and the words hung in the air like lead, a shrapnel of realization piercing through me. They want him. Your connection to that dog is more profound than you know. Each word reverberated through me like a dissonant note in a symphony of horror, awakening memories that I had desperately shielded from light. Max? No, that's not possible. He's just a dog. My voice faltered with the disbelief, yet the pang of fear in my heart belied my protests. But Lilith's expression didn't shift. It bore the gravitas of truths untold, weighing down on me like a storm cloud ready to burst. Carmen, you don't understand. They believe he carries the key to something vital, something that could change the fate of everything. What do you mean? My voice was barely audible, a whisper against the backdrop of despair. The tether I had with Max surged in my heart, fear mingling with the fierce loyalty I felt not just to him, but to all we had endured together. Your connection to him is powerful. It was forged in battle and loyalty. They think that if they can sever that bond, they can control you. Control everything. Her gaze turned desperate, as if she were pleading with the very marrow of my being to comprehend the enormity of the situation. And what makes you believe that? As I searched her eyes, the familiar warmth of our childhood drifted far away, replaced by something sharper, something jagged, like broken glass against my heart. Because they were my family, Carmen. She shared, the admission spilling forth from her lips like poison, festering in the open. When I left, I thought I was escaping. They've always been hunting those with strength, and you look where you are now, dragging the very essence of survival with you. Jason grabbed my arm, urgency pouring from him as he whispered, "We need to move. We can't linger here." His words echoed my own fears, and yet I felt paralyzed in this morass of emotions, a rush of betrayal mingling with vivid memories of shared childhood laughter and dreams whispered beneath the stars. What do I do, Lila? What do you want from me? Each word poured out imbued with desperation, heavy with the weight of my heart. I want you to trust me. You need to understand that your bond with Max is a tether to a greater future. I can help you navigate these waters if you allow me just this once. We can win this together. And in that moment, I saw a flicker of light nestled within the shadows of our fraught relationship. This was a second chance, however fragile, to untangle our lives from the darkness surrounding us. But could I allow it? With a heart heavy with uncertainty, I felt the bonds of family wrap around me in a tenuous embrace. Okay, I breathed finally, yielding to the pull of that distant light. But if we do this together. A gentle smile broke through Lila's sorrowful eyes, an echo of a time before purity had started to rust. Together. With those two words, a promise had been forged, a promise that transcended the scars of our shattered pasts. As we moved forward, stepping into the unknown, I clung to that promise, the flickering bond that gave strength to my resolve. Lila led us deeper into the thicket, toward a hidden path illuminated by moonlight that now felt imbued with purpose. Each step felt like a step away from shadows that had threatened to envelope us, a rebirth of unity trying to mend the past with a fragile thread of hope. Yet uncertainty lurked in the background. The horrors that had forged our stories weren't yet behind us. As the sound of footsteps echoed against the ground behind us, chasing toward our shifting silhouette, I understood the reality. We're not merely running. We were breaking free, plotting a path towards something different. Together, moments later, we reached a clearing where a cottage stood, seemingly abandoned but glowing faintly in the distant darkness. It beckoned us with promises of safety and secrets yet to be unlocked. I could feel the pang of hope surging within, burnishing each thought with promise. But as we approached, a new wave of fear swept over me. Had awaited inside? Are we safe here? My heart raced, pulse quickening with every word as if the walls might betray us at any moment. Safe? Lila echoed softly, stepping toward the door, her expression a blend of resolve and trepidation. Safety is an illusion, Carmen. Here, we will find answers. With that, she turned back to look at us, and in that moment, I caught a glimpse of our shared past, the laughter, the escapism, the vitality of life mingled with dreams of what we could have become. The thought swirled inside me, a tempest brewing as the threads we once shared tightened around our futures. As Lila reached for the door handle, a final shimmer of doubt flickered. But in one sweeping embrace, I laid my hand on hers. No matter what lies ahead, I promise to bring you back. Her eyes softened, a spark igniting the unbreakable bond of trust we were forging once again. And as that door swung open, revealing shadows cloaked in mystery, I recalled our collective resiliency, a soldier's bond intertwined with love and sacrifice, the depth of our connection guiding our next steps into an uncertain future. And even as the darkness threatened to rush in, I found comfort in knowing the love we shared propelled us forward. The fight was only just beginning, and together, we would navigate the winding path back to each other and to Max, against the shadows that sought to engulf us. As we stepped inside, the weight of the world was stripped from our shoulders, a new beginning unfolding before us, like a delicate blossom braving the cold, offering a warmth that would remind us all along the way that no matter the odds stacked against us, love would always light the way home. And in that realization, understanding surged through Muhat. We saw it was not just the forgiveness found in shared blood, but the companionship that thrived amidst chaos. Forever ignited by that fierce bond, we shared, a soldier with his dog, destined to find their way back to one another, fueled by the most potent force of all, an undying love.